Hello, I'm Clare Squires and I'm the Disability Officer for Autism at Montfort University. And today I want to talk to you about going out on a date. Now, we've called this one Before You Go on a Date. And the reason for this, the reason that we want to talk about going on a date and start to think about things is because going out on dates is very exciting. Of course it is. But there are challenges too. So a lot of it's challenging for everybody, but particularly for people with autism, because there are unwritten rules to do with dating. There's probably going to be some non-verbal signals involved in your date, and your date, you're going to be with somebody that you don't know ever so well. And those things, they can all be really challenging. So that's why we're going to talk about going on a date today. So dates are fun, and we all go on dates for different reasons, and our motivations are different. So not everybody is going to have the same motivation as you. Not everybody is going to be looking for the same thing as you. So that's important to remember that. Now, some people, they're dating, they're looking for their forever person, aren't they? They're looking for a long-term partner. Some people are just, wanting to have a bit of fun. Some people might just be after some sex. So it's important to think about those aspects before you go out on a date, because the people that you're going out on a date with, they might not be feeling exactly the same way as you. They might be on a date for a completely different reason. So we do need to consider what their motivation might be. And it's important to think ahead about all these different possibilities of what their motivation might be, so that we can anticipate it a little bit. So the idea of sex might not be in your head, and it might not be on your agenda at all, but it might be on their agenda. So it's important to be aware of it. Now, no presentation about dating would be complete, would it, without me talking about safety? So I'm going to go through some safety stuff here. It's really important that when you're getting ready for your date, that you've got your phone plugged in and you're charging it up. So you're going out with a fully charged phone, because you don't know how long that date's going to be. You don't know how long your battery life is going to need to last on your phone. And you don't want to be running out of charge when you need to order an Uber at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's important as well to tell somebody where you're going. I know that we don't necessarily want everybody to know everything that we're up to, but from a safety point of view, it's a good idea to let somebody know, one of your friends, one of your housemates, know where you're going, who you're meeting, where you're meeting them, what you're planning on doing. Now, there's plenty of apps that you can use that share your location. Life 360, you find My iPhone, and then there's location sharing, isn't there, in Snapchat, WhatsApp, all of those sorts of things. It might not be a bad idea to share your location. We're just being safe here. So you're going out on a date with somebody you don't know particularly well. It's best to be safe. Now, meet in a public place. Now, you might have been chatting to them for ages online and you feel like you know them. And I know that you feel like you know them, but just for safety's sake, you meet them in a public place for those first few dates until you're sure that you do know them. So you don't accept an invitation to go back to theirs, even if they are going to cook you a really nice meal. And you certainly don't invite them back to your room. So you're going to meet them somewhere public. So you could meet them outside a pub, go to a pub, a club, a cafe, go to the cinema, go to Crazy Golf, go somewhere where there's lots of other people. Now, it's really important that you don't accept a lift with them. So don't get in their car, no matter how fantastic their car is. So I know it would save you the Uber fare, but for safety's reason, you don't get in their car, not until you know them a little bit better. And it's really important to watch your alcohol. And I mean literally watch your alcohol, because you need to be aware of whether somebody's putting anything in your drink, don't you? But also you need to watch how much alcohol you're drinking, because it's important that you can think clearly on your date. So, desire. Now, it is perfectly normal to feel sexual desire, especially when you're kissing, cuddling somebody, and it's a really nice feeling, and some feel-good chemicals are being released by your body. But just because you're feeling desire, just because your body is feeling desire, that doesn't mean that you want to have sex, or that you must have sex with somebody. You don't have to have sex. It's okay just to enjoy those feelings that you're experiencing. Now, the reason I'm saying all of this is because you need to be aware that the person you're with, your date, that you're kissing and cuddling, they might also be feeling desire, and they might be keen to take things further. So you need to be aware of that, because even though it's not on your agenda, it might be on their agenda. So let's talk a little bit about some physiological responses, things that are happening in your body, things that you have no control over, that are just physiological responses to kissing and cuddling somebody. So they might be, so there's signs of like sexual arousal. So they might be things like an erection or increased lubrication, even things like arousal and orgasm. They're involuntary, so that means that your body might be reacting in one way even when you're not consenting to that activity, actually. So it's important to be aware that these things are involuntary. So just because your partner has an erection or they're aroused doesn't mean that they want to have sex with you, and that they, you know, that that's in their mind. They might do, but it doesn't necessarily mean it. So you don't have to act on those urges, those physical changes, those sensations that are happening in your body. You don't have to act on them if you don't want to. But if you do choose to act on those responses, it's really important that you make sure that your partner is choosing to act on them too, because sometimes when we're feeling really aroused, it's easy for us to assume that the person we're with is feeling exactly the same as us, and they might not. So it's important to remember that. I want to talk as well now about the prefrontal cortex of the brain. So lust and attraction shuts off the prefrontal cortex of the brain, and the prefrontal cortex of the brain regulates critical thinking, self-awareness, and rational behaviour. So it's important to remember that those functions will be impaired when you're feeling attraction and arousal. So some people call this sex brain when that happens. So when sex brain is in charge, you might make riskier decisions. Knowing this, it's important that you make decisions with your rational brain. Now, as we've said, when you're out on that date, when you're cuddling, kissing, your rational brain isn't going to be is a bit impaired. So it's best to make those decisions before you go out on a date, and then stick to them when you're out on a date. So knowing that your sex brain might influence your decision making later on the date, make your decisions and then stick to them even when sex brain is trying to take over. So you might decide before you go on a date there is no way that they're coming back to yours or that you're going back to theirs, or there is no way that you're going to have sex without protection. So if you decide that there's no way that you're going to be having sex with them, then make it easier for yourself to stick to that. So maybe it's by wearing your most terrible underwear. If you wore your most terrible underwear that you wouldn't want anyone to see, when you go to the loo, you'll see your terrible underwear and it will remind you. Also, you could ask a friend to phone you at a certain time and give you a reason to leave, so that there's no way that you can stay all night or part of the night. So maybe your friend rings you to remind you that you've agreed to go to the library to work on an assignment together or something like that. So it's your decision what you decide to do. Just because someone wants to have sex with you, that doesn't mean that you've got to have sex with them. It's your decision. It absolutely is. It doesn't matter if they are expecting sex. It doesn't matter if they say to you, oh, everyone does this, and tries to make you feel a bit silly or babyish. They might say it's no big deal. But if you think it's a big deal, then it's a big deal. So don't let them persuade you and wear you down. If you make your decision and they go on and on and on, and eventually you give in to them, you're not going to feel very good about yourself afterwards. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they paid for the entire evening. It doesn't matter if they drove 160 miles to see you. You don't have to have sex with people if you don't want to. So, no presentation about sexual relationships would be complete without me mentioning safe sex. So here we go. It's always a good idea to have some condoms or femidoms or dental dams or all of those with you, because you never know. Far better to have some condoms in your drawer that eventually go out of date because you've never used them and you have to throw them away, than go out on a date and not have something when you need it. So make sure you've got whatever it is you need and you've got it with you. Of course, no presentation about dating would be complete without some consent. So consent is really important, and I'm going to run through a few slides here with you about consent. Communication is vital here. It's important to talk about how you're feeling because you don't want to make any mistakes. And again, it's very easy to assume that somebody's feeling exactly the same as you. They're enjoying themselves and they want to do what you want to do. They might do, but you've got to check this out. Just because you're ready for sex doesn't mean that your partner's ready for sex. So, this is the definition of consent from the Sexual Offences Act 2003. Someone consents to vaginal, anal or oral penetration only if they agree by choice to that penetration and have the freedom and capacity to make that choice. So if they're asleep, for example, they can't give their consent. If they're drunk or under the influence of drugs, then they can't give their consent. And if they're underage, obviously they wouldn't be able to consent. They might say they're consenting, but in law that means nothing. They are not able to give their consent if they're underage. Now, you might have heard phrases like continuous consent or ongoing consent or enthusiastic consent. So this is by far the safest approach. Continuous or ongoing consent is about checking in with your partner at every stage of sex, and it's about being told yes rather than the absence of no. So, continuous consent would be you asking permission before you do anything or before you change the type of touch or intensity of whatever you're doing. And all you need to do is say things like, is this okay? And then just check in that they are interested and that yes, they're agreeing that this is okay before you initiate any physical touch or the change the intensity or the type of sexual activity. So you could also let your partner know that it's okay to stop at any time. You can just say, if you don't, we can, we don't have to carry on. We can stop. It's fine. So the ongoing, the continuous, it's all about checking in regularly. So every little while, just, is this still okay? Are you still okay with this? And it's about them providing positive feedback that they're comfortable with an activity. It's important that you get explicit consent, them agreeing to an activity by saying yes or another affirmative statement like, yeah, I'm happy with that, or yes, good, things like that. We're also looking for signs that things are okay. So as well as consent, it's a good idea to keep looking for clues to ensure that everything is still okay. So sex is a mutual activity. So say you're touching them and they're not touching you back. They've got their hands by their sides. That doesn't seem like they are reciprocating. If that's the case, I'd stop and I'd check that everything's okay. Is everything all right? Are you okay? Is this okay with you? Just, it's simple as that. You need to look and see whether they seem happy. Are they smiling? Obviously, people don't grin all the way through sex, but you need to check that they're not disengaged or unresponsive or visibly upset. If they were, or if you weren't sure, stop and just check. Say, are you okay? Do you want to stop? Stuff like that. So this is not consent. So if you are refusing to acknowledge them saying no, if you're just carrying on anyway and assuming that they'll be okay with it, if you're with a partner who is visibly upset or disengaged or non-responsive, that wouldn't be consent. And it's important to remember that because somebody is kissing you or flirting with you, that doesn't mean that they want to have sex with you. Just because they're wearing skimpy clothes or not very many clothes, that doesn't mean that they want to have sex with you either. And again, being under the legal age of consent, as defined by the country that you're in, is important. So remember, different parts of the world have different ages of consent, and somebody under the age of consent cannot legally give their consent. So it doesn't matter what they've said. If they've said yes, that is irrelevant if they're underage. If they're incapacitated because they're drunk or under the influence of drugs, then they're not able to give their consent. So it doesn't matter if they're saying yes, they're not able to give consent. And if you are pressurizing somebody into a sexual activity, maybe, or if somebody's pressurizing you into an activity, a sexual activity that maybe they're intimidating you or putting you under pressure, making you feel afraid, that's not consent either. Also, if you've had sex with somebody before, that doesn't mean that they're consenting to have sex with you again. So you would need to check every time. Is this okay? So here are some red flags. If the person that you are with is refusing to acknowledge when you say no, that's a red flag. If they're trying to persuade you when you've already said no, trying to change your mind, that's a red flag. Those are signs that the person that you're with isn't very nice. I mean, why would they not be taking any notice of you when you're saying no? They don't care very much about you if that's the case. Why would they be trying to persuade you when you've said no? Why would they be trying to persuade you? Not because they care about you, but because they're prioritising themselves. So those are the sorts of things that would make me think hard about whether this is the right person to be going out with. Right, so that's the end of today's presentation. I hope that you found it useful. If there is anything that you want to ask us about, contact the Autism team and we'll help you out with it. If you want to get in touch with us, our address is there, or you could add a comment in the comments section. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon.